It is not apart from the Evidence Act. You have certain additional acts which contain the rules of evidence, such as I gave you, for example, the Bankers Books Evidence Act. Please note that here, under the Bankers Books Evidence Act, the material evidence is Section 4, especially when you file cases against the banks or 138 proceeding, you are required to prove that a check has been issued dishonored. You have to take recourse to the provisions of Section 4, 3, 2, 3, and 4 of the Bankers Evidence Act. You need not bring the moment you obtain a certified copy from the bank, it itself is a good hold evidence. There is no need to examine the bank officer or manager in that regard. That's why that is an explanation to Section 65, Clause E of the Indian Evidence Act. Then you also have provisions like Commercial Document Evidence Act. Commercial Document Evidence Act is an old act of 1939, which makes provision with regard to admissibility of evidence, aircraft rules, shipping rules, as well as the railway rules, the gazettes notification issued by the ministry, by the government, by the authorities under the railways, under the Indian Airways, as well as the maritime authorities, how they are admissible is given under the Commercial Document Evidence Act. And also, when you see that here, under the Companies Act, you obtain certified copy of the Memorandum and Articles of Association. That also comes under this act here. So you need not examine the registrar who issued the authorities here. Then you have the Code of Civil Procedure that we already mentioned in the nature of Order 18, Rule 4A CPC, where the evidence is discussed here substantially. Then even the CRPC, the provisions of Section 291, 292, they discuss here. The affidavits can be used for evidence here. Well, because that is only a section apart from Section or Order 18, Rule 4A CPC. Then Section 291, 292 in the CRPC tells you when affidavit can be an evidence. Otherwise, the Evidence Act tells you clearly the affidavits are excluded from the purview of the evidence. Then we also have the Indian Divorce Act. Now, the Divorce Act under the Christian Law 1889 ka old act, there is Section 7, 12, and 14 in the matter of when you file a petition for divorce or for adultery, and what kind of evidence can be dispensed is given here. Then you have the Limitation Act Section 19 and 20 deals with the exclusion of time when it begins with what kind of evidence is required to be led. These are the rules contained in the Evidence Act. Then you have the Registration Act we discussed already, that is Section 49 and 50, the effect of non-registration of a document under Section 17 of the Act. So they also contain the rules relating to Evidence Act here that you must come into. Then we have the Indian Stamp Act of 1899, that is Section 35 tells you when the stamp is inadequately stamped, it is not receivable in evidence. So this is it supplants to the existing Indian Evidence Act is here. Then you have the Indian Succession Act 1929. Section 63 tells you when an underprivileged will can be executed, how many witnesses are required to sign it here. The mode of proof is given under Section 68, 69 of the Indian Evidence Act. So the Act has to be read in conjunction with the provisions of the Succession Act, the Indian Evidence Act. Then you have a Transfer of Property Act, Section 59 and 123 tell you what kind of evidence is required to be produced before the court when you are registering a particular document. That is given. You learned in the second year. So, in short, the Indian Evidence Act is not an exclusive act which deals only with evidence. Though it says that it's consolidating all the act, but there is no mention of all these acts here. So all these acts which I mentioned to you, some of them are procedural laws and some of them are substantive law. CRPC is a procedural law which contains the rules with regard to evidence, isn't it? Then the Transfer of Property Act, the Indian Stamp Act, the Succession Act, they're all substantive law which normally deal with the right title interest as to how the parties. So one section partly it contains the rules of evidence in that regard. So please note this. This is what exactly. Then arbitrators, before the arbitrators, the act is excluded. Before the executive magistrate, it is excluded. Then before the tribunals and quasi-judicial forum, they are not strictly bound to follow the Indian Evidence Act. They have to only follow the principles of justice, equity, and good conscience. These are the definition parts which we learned so far in the act here. Then we'll learn the definition of court, then fact, relevant, and fact in issue, isn't it? So that is how the act has defined what is a fact and fact in issue. You can only lead evidence with regard to fact in issue and relevant fact. Fact in issues are dealt under the provisions of CPC under Order 14 and under the CRPC section, the chapter relating to framing of a charge from section 11, 211 to 221, isn't it? That those are the facts in issue. Then relevant, the relevant facts are dealt under the Evidence Act from section 5 से लेकर section 6 से लेकर 55, that we will be dealing step by step in the matter. Then we also learned the definition of a document. Yesterday we discussed elaborately what is a document. A map is a document. Inscription is a document. A caricature is a document. Then printed lithography, photography, a document. That you learn all the documents can be used in the before the court of law. Then you also learn the definition, which is the limited definition of the evidence which is given all statements made before the court, namely statement in the nature of oral evidence and also primary evidence, secondary evidence. Oral evidence are dealt under section 59 and 60 of the Indian Evidence Act. Oral evidence exclude the hearsay evidence, only direct witnesses. Then the documentary evidence come within the purview of, they are known as the primary evidence, which is the original document, or the secondary evidence under section 63 and 65 of the Evidence Act, which we will deal thoroughly. So apart from this, then they have added one more new item to the documents, that is electronic record produced before the court of law for inspection in the wake of the amendment, in the wake of the provisions of Information Technology Act of 2000, that you have to remember here. Okay, so far this is the topic. Now today's topic which I'll be taking is see, there is a proved, disproved, not proved. So what is expected of a party, plaintiff or defendant, prosecution or the defense, what they must prove before the court of law? What facts must be proved and what facts can be said to be disproved and what facts are said to be not proved. So for proving the fact before the court of law, you know that here after the pleadings are completed in the civil proceeding, both the plain and written statement is completed, the court frames issues. Okay? The framing of the issue is a stage which comes after the plain written statement. Parties have taken inspection, exchanged the interrogatories under Order 11, Order 12, Order 13, and filed the affidavit as to documents. ये सब करने के बाद, these are the pre-trial arrangements. Then the court frames the issues, or the court may also frame the issues immediately after receiving the written statement, and the court will give direction to the parties. Both the parties, all the parties herein are directed to take inspection of the original document, file their affidavit as to documents. So the parties will do the needful, and also file the interrogatories if any. Normally the practice in Bombay City has seen that they don't exchange interrogatories here. Many lawyers or solicitors, advocates here, and the interrogatories are covered at the time when examination in chief and evidence is led. But it's a good practice with a view to see that the court's time is not defeated. Parties must frame the interrogatories as contemplated under the provisions of Order 11. So these are questions and answers which can be used ultimately in the evidence stage. These interrogatories are filed, as you know, that with the leave of the court. So, ये होने के बाद, then next step is
So doesn't it delay the proceedings here in Bombay if they don't exchange the interrogatories from before? Then you can always say that you want time to study the interrogatories or no.
Interrogatories provision is not mandatory, it is a discretionary provision. The court, it says it may with the leave of the court. Because the procedural law, the CPC, it doesn't direct you that you must mandatorily file it. But what you must mandatorily file it is you must file the list of witnesses, and you must file your list of documents and affidavit of document. These are mandatory. And again, this being procedural provision, the court of law is liberal. If you are not filed it within a particular time, within 1 week or 2 weeks, court normally grants you time. And if you don't file it in time, when the last limit is given, the court may strike it off. A court may say that you will be disentitled from leading it here. So many people in the district level, yes, interrogatories actually. I've seen in the district level court and many mufassil courts, this practice is still prevailing. In the city of Mumbai, hardly it is there, but very few, very rarely and barely this section is resorted to. But it can be done so. Okay, then the question of proving, disproving, and not proving a document comes into play when the issues are framed under Order 14 CPC and the charges are framed under 211, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18 of the CRPC. Now let us see one by one. Now, what is the requirement before the court of law? The Evidence Act says that here, for invoking, for proving a particular document, for proving a document or proving evidence, it is not the mathematical calculation which you require it here, isn't it? It is not the mathematical. The court may, in a position, what a reasonable man, what a man of ordinary prudence in a position to infer that there is an evidence before the court, yes, you can act upon it. It goes on a supposition that here, it is not a definite evidence. It is a must evidence. The evidence is of various types. We discuss here, there is the direct witnesses, there are indirect witnesses, there are chance witnesses, there are stock witnesses, there are sterling witnesses, which we'll learn when I'm giving you the illustration of witnesses. There are hundreds of types of witnesses. The court's duty is to assess the evidence here. That is why the court also takes resort to the doctrine of maximum called falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus. That means a witness who deposes totally wrong about A issue and something right he says about B issue, the prosecution or defense may say that the court should not rely upon his version because this witness, this is not truthful witness. He has totally lied with respect to the incident at all. But whereas as regard the second issue or a second charge, the court believes his evidence is acceptable. So in England, the law is that here, if the witness is disbelieved in one particular, his entire evidence is disbelieved all throughout and disregarded. But in India, it is not so. In India, the doctrine of falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus is not strictly applied. It only says it's a rule of caution the court may take into consideration. It is the duty and function of the court to sift the chaff from the sifting of the chaff from the wheat. Yes, that is the court. If it is done here, the court may accept the good part of the evidence and eliminate the bad part of the evidence. So the court has to be cautious. The court is giving preference to what an ordinary man of prudence can accept it here. His version can be accepted. So that is why the court is relying upon inferences. The supposition which can be accepted by the court of law, that can be accepted here. Now, such a proposition came up before the Supreme Court in Narsingha Rao versus State of Andhra Pradesh. That is a judgment reported in EIR 2001, page number 318. Now, in this case, the Supreme Court held that the fact is said to be proved when, after considering the matters before it, the court either believes it to exist or considers the existence probable that a prudent man ought, under the circumstances of a particular case, to exist. So this is the definition of the thing. So that means This definition of the word proved in Evidence Act, what is required is the production of such material, which is the court reasonably uh, acts to reach supposition that the fact exists. That is what the supposition here. Then the proof of the fact depends on the degree of probability. That is, the prudent man acting in an important matter concerning him. And that means it is not a definite evidence. The court must be satisfied that is going to be the evidence here. Now, it is what is more important. See, in both the term proved and disproved, the court is using the word. The Indian Evidence Act is using the word matters before it. Kindly underline it. And it is not using the word evidence before it. Normally, the court has to consider the evidence before it, but for the purpose of proving and disproving a document, it says considering the matters before it. Now, the expression matters before it is very, very wide, whereas the expression evidence is very limited. Under Section 3, evidence is used only statement recorded by the court. Then the documents which are brought before the court is very narrow. Whereas matters before the court, I will give you certain illustration following the CPC and CRPC and other act. Now take for example, when it says the matters before the court, the definition, for example, take the result of a local inquiry before the court. Now, during the civil proceeding or criminal proceeding, that here the court may hold local inspection. That here Justice Adhish Shah and Justice Shawak Wazifdar, they went to Chowpatty when petition was filed. There is the environmental pollution taking place. There is the ecological imbalances. That here this was reported in newspapers. You may see that here. Now, this provision of the court, the power of the court to take in local inspection, you will find under Order 18 Rule Order 18 Rule 18 of the Code of Civil Procedure that we learned last time, isn't it? Under Order 18 Rule 18 में देखे आपने, पढ़े आपने. Then similarly, under the provisions of Section 3110 CRPC, आपको पता खोलिए. Section 3110 CRPC, the magistrate or a criminal court judge may hold local inspection. Of course, you have gone through this. You need not open it up. You may just go to that here. That is a local inspection. So the court may take into consideration Section 3110 देखिए आप 310. You got it? See that local inspection. Any judge or a magistrate may, at any stage of any inquiry or trial or other proceeding after due notice to the parties, visit and inspect any place which an offense is alleged to have committed or any other place which is in the opinion necessary in view of the purposes of the property, appreciating the evidence given, such inquiry trial or such without unnecessary delay, recording a memorandum of relevant fact observed at such inspection. See that here, this is not covered. This particular local inspection report is not falling within the mischief of the definition evidence. But the court will consider this particular important local inspection report conducted by the learned magistrate and the learned judges, criminal court judges here in this matter here. Now, similarly, you please come to the provisions of Order 18, Rule 18. It would be appropriate to mention the provisions of Order 18. I would like to, so that you don't forget your CPC, because CPC is also important in Evidence Act. Kindly turn to Order 18, Rule 18 CPC. देखिए, power of the court to inspect. Did you find this? Yeah, I will just read it for you for your concern. Yeah. The court may at any stage of the subject suit inspect any property or thing concerned which any question may arise, and where any court inspect any property or thing, it shall, as soon as may be practical, make a memorandum of any relevant fact, observe such inspection, and such memorandum shall form part of the record of the suit. See that here? This Order 18 Rule 8, power of the court to inspect the memorandum prepared, is again not falling within the definition of evidence before the Indian Evidence Act. But the court, while appreciating evidence, while when parties are required to prove a document, prove the evidence, prove the case, the court may consider this as a matter before it. It is an important matter before the court. You got it here? So this is the second example where the local inspection, you got it here. Now there are many examples here. Now under the provisions of when a complaint is filed under section 200, a private complaint, the learned magistrate, instead of issuing an order for police investigation, he may direct an inquiry by the magistrate. That is section 202 of the खोले में मालूम हो जाएगा. Just खोलिए section 200 खोलिए आप. Yeah, section 200 B में check करो आप. If the magistrate makes over a case for inquiry, and this is inquiry or a trial to another magistrate under 192. Now 192, if you open and see, it speaks of again the power of the court to hold inquiry. Making over a case for a magistrate. Any chief judicial magistrate may, after taking cognizance of an offence, make over the case for inquiry or trial. So the inquiry report is not brought within the purview of the evidence, but it's a matter before the court, which court will look into it for the purpose of proving a case. Now another next example I will give you of the inquiry, when you kindly see section 148 check करें CRPC का local inquiry. Section 148. Now, under 148, now this section comes into play when you know that here two parties are litigating. There is a dispute as to immovable property. The famous cases such as breach of peace in the locality. A and B claiming property to be theirs, and A is stopping B from withdrawing water from the particular place or a fountain, or he is trying to dispossess B in the matter here. When, of course, in the cases relating to dispossession, you may go under section 6 of the specific relief act. But here the criminal offense is committed, a party may go before the magistrate under invoking section 145. When 145 is invoked, the learned magistrate, after perusing the report of the police officer, he may undertake a local inquiry, or he may delegate it to the divisional magistrate. You know that, yeah? Whenever a local inquiry is necessary for the purpose of 145, section 146, 147, district magistrate or subdivisional magistrate may depute a magistrate subordinate to him to make the inquiry and furnish him such written instruction as may seem necessary for the purpose of guidance and declaration. So this inquiry report is also a matter before the criminal court, which can be considered as evidence. It is not strictly evidence. It has all the trapping of evidence. Please note that here. So there are various examples here. Some in the CRPC and the CPC, which I have given you some of the illustration. Then I may also point out to you that while deciding a case, when examination chief cross-examination is taking place, you must train your witness to behave properly. Please note that as a young lawyer, you should know that the witness should not be, trying to overreach the court. The witness should be asked to stand up, sit properly, stand up properly, and his demeanor must be very appropriate before the court. He should not be using offensive language to the cross-examining counsel. He should not be showing his eyes to the counsel. So this is called a demeanor of the witness, which may also be taken into account by the court. Now that provision you will find in CPC as well as in CRPC. Now first I will take up the CPC. check लिया आप order 18 rule 12 खोल लीजिए आप. Order 18 rule 12, that is order 18 dealing with evidence.
Sir, if the magistrates are holding inquiries, then how come the conviction rate is so poor, sir?
That is a debatable proposition. We have to ask them, and you have to put up your case properly. Because if the prosecution has not put up a case properly, you cannot blame the magistrate. And it is the investigation agency, the police officer, has to give a good report. And see, the public prosecutor or a defense lawyer or a private complaint lawyer must be in a position to adduce proper evidence before the court. You must be in a position to elucidate all these examples which I am giving you. When you become a lawyer, you just cannot say that, my lord, I am relying upon the plain written statement, complainant, and the first information report 154 and 161. So whatever I am pointing out, please bear in mind. Whatever we are teaching today, it is not just useful for you from examination point of view, but from your practice point of view. For conducting a trial, many lawyers, with due respect, are cutting a sorry figure in the court because they are not well equipped with the provisions. I am so sorry to say that here, many of our lawyers, many of our friends, very unfortunate when you come and see the judges are asking them question, where are you covered and what provision? They are not able to say that. So I want you to be completely equipped with all the provision. The reason I am drawing your attention to all these sections because you remember them. You remember them and use them and in the trial court. Now, when I mentioned to you, the court will take into consideration the demeanor of the witnesses. Please have a look at the order 18 rule 12 of the CPC. Check कर लीजिए आप. खोलिए. Yeah. Have you opened it? Yes, I'll just read it here. The court may record such remarks as it may material respecting the demeanor of any witness while under examination. While under examination means the witness is not trying to act smart. He should not be offensive to the counsel or to the judge. He should not be biased. He should not be arrogant. So it is the duty of the counsel. If you are leading evidence examination chief, you must tell your client to behave properly. And you should not be aggressive. The answer must be very polite. Yes and no mein answer kijiye. Don't be rude to the court. Don't argue with the judges. Don't argue with the opponent. That is the meaning of demeanor. If the witness is offensive, the judge will record in the conduct of the witness is reprehensible. He is trying to browbeat the arguing counsel. He is trying to act smart in the court of law. His conduct is unbecoming as a witness. So these are the point qualities of a witness is important. So these are the matters before the court of law. So substantial credit goes to you for training your own witness. And if you don't train your witness, you might lose the case. Please note that the court will consider. Now in the CRPC also you will find provision section 280 खोल लीजिए आप. CRPC section 280 खोल लीजिए आप. I'm taking pains to take you through all these sections because you should remember them not only in the examination but also in your when you're conducting cases. Section 28, 280.
If you could take one small class and teach us how to train the witness, so that will be very helpful.
I will tell you how to train them. I will tell you. Section 280 check लीजिए CRPC का. Remarks respecting demeanor of witnesses. When a presiding judge or a magistrate has recorded the evidence of a witness, he shall also record such remarks. He shall also record such remarks, if any, he thinks material respecting the demeanor of such witness while under examination. So the learned magistrate, the learned session judge, or a learned high court judge, or a special judge holding conducting inquiry or trial or recording examination will take note of the demeanor of the witnesses. Please note that here. So this is what the meaning of matters before the court. Then apart from this demeanor local investigation of the court, then admissions made by the parties. You know that here? The admissions, the Evidence Act is that there are certain admissions under the provisions of Order 12. आपने सीखा है अब, the admissions made in the pleading, certain paragraphs of the plaint you are not denied completely. A vague denial amounts to admission. Then under the provisions of section 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 of the Evidence Act, there are admissions which are not technically evidence under the definition, but the court will consider those admissions also as important in the matter. Then another important, when I talk of admission in civil proceedings and also civil, then there is a statement of the accused recorded by the court. Now the statements are recorded, section 311 खोल लीजिए CRPC का. Power of the court to examine of the accused. Now, when the accused is examined, when after the trial is over, when the prosecution has led evidence, prosecution witnesses have been cross-examined by the defense, then the defense leads his evidence, then cross-examination is over, then before pronouncing judgment, the learned judge or a magistrate will give an opportunity to the accused. What do you want to say? What is your statement? So those statements are technically not evidence, but the court may consider those statements. Let us have a look briefly. Power to examine the accused. In every inquiry or trial, for the purpose of enabling the accused personally to explain any circumstances appearing in the evidence against him, the court may at any stage, without previously warning the accused, put such question to him as the court may consider necessary. Now, power of the court to put questions that you will find also under the provisions of section 165 of the Evidence Act. Please see that here, section 165. The judge may 165 खोल लीजिए आप. (165) of the Evidence Act. The judge may, in order to discover or to obtain proper proof, proof of relevant fact, ask any question he pleases in any form, at any time, of any witnesses or of the parties about the fact, relevant or irrelevant. See, the word used is relevant or irrelevant. It is only the judge who is entitled to ask questions, even irrelevant. But whereas as a cross-examining counsel or examination chief in counsel, you are debarred from asking irrelevant questions. That is what the language of section 5 tells you. I will take it on. Then and may order the production of any document or thing. Neither parties nor their agent shall entitled to make any objection to any such a question or order, nor without the leave of the court to cross-examine any witness upon the answer given so. So there is a wide discretion given to the Honorable Court in the matter of putting question. So those questions are also forming part of this. They become the matters before the court here. So kindly note that here, this is the language used in the word expression proved is the court will take into consideration matters before it. So there is also a matter before it. A local commissioner is appointed under the provisions of Order 26, Rule 9 CPC. You know that here, isn't it? For elucidating a subject matter of the suit property, the court appoints a commissioner. देखने के लिए जगह बिल्डिंग है ही नहीं, जगह कितनी है, land dispute है. The plaintiff will say my land is 1 acre. The defendant will say no, it is 2 acres. So measurement will take place. So that provision for elucidating the subject matter, the commissioner will be appointed. Now this commissioner can be appointed not only under Order 26 Rule 9, courts appoint a commissioner to see the suit premises. Mean the subject matter of the property which is in dispute. Whereas under the provisions of Order 37, Order 39, Rule 7, Order 39 खोलिए था CPC, Order 39 Rule 7, the court has wide power to inspect not only the suit premises but also the adjoining property. Yes, see that here? Detention, preservation, inspection of the subject of the suit land. The court may, on the application of any party to the suit on the term things, make an order for detention, preservation, inspection of any property which the subject matter of the suit or which any question may arise. Then B, for all any of the purposes aforesaid, authorize any person to enter upon into any land or building. It says that any land or building in possession of any of the party to the suit. It is not only confined to the suit premises, any other property. So you may take up the plea that the landlord requires the premises reasonably and bona fide for his own use and occupation. The defendant has in his possession 4 flats. Not only the suit premises, he has a flat at Nepean Sea Road. He has a flat at Colaba. He has a flat at Bandra and Andheri. So you may make application for inspection of the property at Colaba or Nepean Sea Road, which may not be the suit premises. The suit premises may be a property which is situated in Bandra. So the court is not prevented from appointing a commissioner to look into. Then C says, for all any of the purposes aforesaid, authorize the samples to be taken, observation to be made, experiment to be tried. So they have very wide powers. So this is also falling within the ambit of the matters before the court. Then another example I gave you, the bailiff of the court. After the filing of the suit, plain, the next step is here, filing writ of summons. You take the bailiff of the court to serve the writ of summons upon the defendant under the provisions of Order 5 CPC. Now, you take the bailiff records the finding that here, when I went to serve the writ of summons upon the defendant, I found the premises locked. So observation likhega. Then I made inquiries with the immediate neighbor. The neighbor tells me that here the premises are locked for more than 3 months and the defendant is gone out of India. So those entries made by the bailiff, who is an officer of the court, are actually not evidence, but they are matters before the court. The court will say, when you make an application for setting aside the ex parte decree, that on the ground that the decree has been obtained fraudulently, a fraud has been played, that the court will consider the bailiff report as a matter before the court here. Please note that here. So these are the various examples before the court of law. So that is strictly when you say that here. So when a suit is filed by the plaintiff, he has to prove the issues framed by the court. If you are filing a suit for declaration that the will is forged, then you examine the witnesses. Then you examine the maker. Then you may say that this is not my grandfather's signature. Then you will bring before the court of law his original signature, which may be contained in his passport, his school records. You may tell the court, your lordship may kindly compare the signature. Compare the signature in the passport and the signature in the will. The both are at variance. Now that comparison can be done by the court. Please see section 73 check karo aap of the Evidence Act. खोलिए आपने. Section 73. This is one of the mode apart from handwriting expert. See, section 73 says comparison of signature, writing a seal with other admitted or proved document. In order to ascertain whether a signature, writing, a seal is that of the person by whom it purports to have been written or made, any signature, writing, or seal admitted, proved to be satisfying the court to have been written or made by the court may be compared with the one which is to be proved, although the signature, writing, or seal has not been produced or proved for the purposes. So you may ask the court, before the court, that the signature signed by the defendant in the wakalatnama is not his signature. Isn't it? You may take up the plea. A fictitious person has signed it here. In matrimonial cases, there are lots of allegations that A and B go to the family court and obtain a decree on consent on the ground that we are husband and wife. Then tomorrow the real wife says that here, no, I did not go to court at all. This is a fraudulent decree. This is a fraudulent proceeding. So the court will compare the signatures, the original signatures in the passport. And the court may also ask the parties to come and sign before the court, apart from invoking its powers under the provisions of Section 45 of the Evidence Act, which speaks of opinion of the expert. Kindly see that Section 45, Section 46 and 47, 47, 49, 50. So these are the provision. But the expert evidence is supposed to be a weak evidence. In the sense, the expert is a human being. He is given the task of comparison. He will give his own finding based upon the old signature, new signature. Then on the basis that on the basis of there are several, they have their own tactics. Unless and until you examine the expert before the court of law, then the evidence, the opinion given by the expert is not admissible. But comparing the signature of the person, like for example, I gave you the will signed by your grandfather, and you may take up the plea, my brother has forged his signature. Then court may look into your grandfather's signature from the passport, if he had any, or from the record of rights, from the conveyance deed. That is substantially a good evidence before the court of law. That is what the court may. It is a matter before the court. Yes. Yes, that is a suit. It is a suit for declaration. So the court may hold that here. I have perused the documents and record. I have compared the signature of the witness. So the plaintiff has substantially proved his case. So I may draw an inference to the effect that here, yes, the signature appearing in the passport is totally different from the one. Maybe having regard to the age, it may differ. By way of prudent caution, I appointed a handwriting expert. His opinion was sought. His also opinion is in the affirmative. So that is how they proved it. Then the next topic is the disproved. When you are not able to, you have not been able to disprove. The plaintiff has taken up the plea that he is the owner of the property, or he is the joint owner of the property. So the court will take into consideration the issues, the joint ownership rights, or whether he has proved any consideration has been paid. Any document such as property card is brought before the court, or any conveyance deed. These are you are required to prove before the court of law. If you are not in a position to substantiate, lead evidence, if you are not exhibited the documents, then the court may say that the plaintiff has not able to prove his case, the case stands disproved in the issue. Then thirdly, similar analogy is approved. Then lastly, not proved. A fact is said to be not proved when neither proved or disproved. When both the parties have not led evidence, there is an issue before the court whether the document is a got-up document, is a forged document, or whether the partnership deed was, a partnership firm was dissolved or not. None of the parties have led evidence. When you take up the contention before the court, or you may, the husband and wife file a suit against inter alia that the decree be passed on the ground of on the ground of cruelty, on the ground of adultery. So the petitioner has not led any evidence of adultery. Number one, the petitioner has not joined the co-respondent, the person with whom adultery took place. The issue is not proved. When the issue is not proved before the court of law, no evidence is led, not proved. So that is what the before the court of law. Now, what you must remember in such a scenario. Now, let me know how much time it is done. How much time we have covered so far?
Sir, we don't have a time limit, sir. But we
No,
have,
time limit कितना हो गया? 45 minutes हुआ अभी 1 hour हो गया.
one. So it's 6:45, 6:55, sir. So about 1 hour.
Okay, another 2 minutes I will take it. We'll take a break, then we'll take subject. So here, so when you see the definition of the evidence and proved, disproved, the case is totally different. The expression evidence is very narrow under the Evidence Act. It speaks of only statements which are in the nature of direct evidence, that is a hearsay evidence, direct evidence, or primary evidence, secondary evidence, which falling in first limb. In the second limb, documentary evidence, which is a primary evidence, secondary evidence. And beyond that doesn't speak here. So from the expression proved and disproved, you have come to know that court will take into consideration all matters before it here. So well matters we have substantiated. So this can only be done at the stage when the court has framed charges. In a criminal prosecution, you know that here the prosecution must prove the charge beyond reasonable doubt. Isn't it? Beyond reasonable doubt, and there is no room for leaving any loopholes. If the prosecution has not led evidence, that is why what will happen? Result in. If the investigation officer is not properly examined. Number two, the witnesses who gave statement under 161 are not examined, because the evidence, 161 statements are not evidence. The police officer cannot take up the plea that the witnesses are not available, they are gone to the native place. He has to issue summons and warrants. There's a procedure given here. Isn't it? Then similarly, the maker of the FIR under 154 must be examined. We learned that here. If you don't examine the maker of the FIR, then the statements are not proved. So that is why the conviction rates are minimal in India, because the prosecution is not in a position to bring forward the correct evidence and substantiate the charges. So that is why, you must substantiate the charges here. Now the provisions of the, when you see section 156 and 157 of the Evidence Act, it will tell you what kind of evidence. You must require corroborative evidence. It's also, evidence is also corroborative evidence. Corroborative means additional fact, it must strengthen. Merely because you have produced a will before the court of law signed by your grandfather is not sufficient. It must be substantiated by bringing the evidence of the witness who signed it. That is mandatory. And when you see section 68 of the Evidence Act will tell you in that regard, why you must examine one of the minimum witnesses. See, proof of the execution of a document required by law to be attested. Attesting witness must be examined. And the only exception contained under the Transfer of Property Act, in the case of a usufructuary mortgage, it is a provision that your recourse to the court of law is not necessary, but you require two witnesses to sign the mortgage deed. And you need not go to the court of law. But it is mandatory that you must examine one of the witnesses under section 68. And if you do not examine the witness, there is no, the will is not proved. So the corroboration under the provisions of section 156, 157 mandate that the statements of a baker must be substantiated by leading additional evidence. by merely producing the statement. Similarly, by merely having the plaint in the court of law is not evidence. By merely having the written statement is no evidence, unless the maker of the statement goes in the box and substantiate the same. Okay? Is that clear? Anybody want to ask any question to me before I take up the next topic? So the doctrine of false cessation, false cessation omnibus is clear to you, isn't it? False in one thing, false in everything is not applicable to Indian condition. Here the court will take into consideration the good evidence and eliminate the bad example. Yeah, we can take a break now. If anybody wants to ask question before the next topic, I will take.
Sir, quick question, sir. When we are discussing banks, why do banks don't want to give loans to lawyers? Is
Now
there something wrong?
There are many lawyers who are getting loan. At least I got it many times.
So is there something wrong with the Banking Act which they think that the lawyers will exploit?
Because they are afraid that the lawyers will litigate. They know, even if they don't have a work, they will create work for themselves. But the lawyers who are paying income tax diligently, they will be able to get it. But banking people see your income tax returns. If you just go empty-handed, nobody will give. They will not give loan to anybody. You must to substantiate whether you are in a position to pay. You must disclose your income tax returns, that you have a decent income, you have a repaying capacity.
So they don't get scared by seeing the profession. Also, that profession is a lawyer, so no loan.
I don't think, according to me, that is not the consideration, because lawyers are more accountable than anybody else. If a lawyer commits a crime, the court will be more tough against a lawyer than an ordinary citizen. Because the lawyer is supposed to know the law, and he cannot deceive people. And once he takes the loan, he must repay.
Yes, sir. And so another question that I asked is, why do judges ask questions to lawyers? They know the law, right? So why are they asking about which law under which the lawyer is covered? Are they just testing the lawyer, or what are they doing, sir?
Judges have unbridled powers to ask any question. You just now read section 165 of the Evidence Act. Relevant or irrelevant question can be asked. You cannot say no. You cannot tell the judge, don't ask me question. Judges normally they are testing the lawyers, because the lawyer is supposed to be well equipped in all branches of law and know the relevant provision. Now, एक section पढ़े आप Evidence Act में, CPC में, and so many branches are coming out.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it?
Yes, sir. But then a junior lawyer has no chance against a senior and experienced lawyer.
No, I don't think so. Even a hardworking junior lawyer can definitely, show a good result before the court of law. He may be in a position to compete, provided well prepared. Read your facts very thoroughly well. Your facts. I will give you one judgment of the English court, where the English judges say that here, the lawyer must know the facts well. Yeah?
Yes, lawyer must know the facts well.
Know the facts. You don't jump to law immediately. You must go through. Your brief so well. You are totally abreast of the facts. If you are not abreast of the facts, and you cannot do justice to the matter. That I will give the English court after this break. Okay, now take a break. All of you have a cup of tea. We'll come back after 5, 6, 7 minutes. Okay.